Welcome to the Warrior's Way Home podcast.
What's up, guys? Hope you guys are all doing well, better than good, better than great, fighting your fight, and have had an awesome week, man. Got some big wins and keeping it moving, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hope everybody's had a good week. Hope you made the best of it, as we always try to do. And hope you got some good plans that's going on for you this weekend. And I'm glad we got to be a part of it. Thanks for joining us here. So, yeah. Travis, how you feeling today, man?
All right, lost my ears. There we go.
Now you're good. I was just asking how you doing today.
Man, I'm cool, man. You know I'm cool. We were on the phone for hours today.
Yeah, they don't know that.
I know. Yeah, man. Sorry about the delay, guys. It has been a bit of a long day for us. We had a big meeting.
That is for sure.
We had a big meeting today. Definitely some iron and sharpening iron kicking off today. So it's been, it's been a day. It's been a day, and but yeah, man. So we're gonna hop right into it, man. We got a great topic kicking off today. Just want to make sure we're live here on Instagram real quick. Give me 1 sec here. Boom, boom. Let's see. Make sure we're good. Looks like we are good there. Yeah, man. So what we're talking about today, guys, is I need a hero. I need a hero. I know, right? I know. And basically talking about should men embrace traditional masculinity? Here in 2025, a lot of times guys are struggling now to kind of not just find out and figure out what masculinity means to them, but find examples of it in let alone in your real life, but in movies now, and different things like that, man. It can be a tough one just to find good examples. We actually did a little thought experiment when we first came up with this title. We changed it a little bit, but we were talking about just finding, like, hey, when was the last time you saw like a decent, masculine, competent father in like TV shows or in movies or different things like that, who's not a buffoon, who's not an idiot, who's not like some abusive dude or drunk who like didn't abandon his kids for 16 years and then met them when they were 17 at a bar or something like that. Nothing crazy, and then decided to become a good dad. But like from jump was there for his kids, was a solid dude, handled his business, was a man, and they show that in media. We had a bit of a struggle, to say the least, to try and come up with some ideas of guys in those scenarios. We ended up having to kind of expand it away from just fatherhood and just masculinity altogether, because there wasn't a lot of examples, to be honest about it, man. It's like we come up with a few, but it took us a minute. To be real about it, it took us a minute, way longer than it should have.
It took us AI. We had to ask the internet. We had to ask the robots, like, hey, well, so like, where are we missing? And like you say, it took us about like 30 minutes to come up with our own examples, and then like Claude was like, oh, here's a bunch of examples, and I'm like, I've never seen any of these movies.
Yeah, right, exactly. That was the kicker, is like examples of like stuff people would have seen. I was like, because there was some I was like, I have no idea who that even is, or like you said, what that movie is, or that a lot of the shows were like a lot of them were like romantic, romance, and like maybe some thrillers here or there. It wasn't one of those things that like the everyday dude probably didn't see that movie. Let's just
it wasn't clear.
So it was definitely interesting, man. So we're gonna hop into it. Hope you guys are all doing well. Let's check out the comments, see if anybody who's rocking with us tonight. Like, so we didn't do a lot of prep for this one, as far as letting everybody know that we were going to be in the building. So, it goes like that sometimes, and we're just going to rock
Yeah, I'm
with it. We're going to keep going.
sending something out right meow.
Mm-hmm.
But when you started to search, or do you want to give it a sec?
Yeah, no, we can hop into it.
Okay.
So when one of the first ones I thought of as far as like masculine handling business type of deals was one of my favorite movies, John Q.
Yes, yeah, I thought about that after we hung up. Yeah, that was a good movie. That was the perfect example of how far are you willing to go for your child.
And he was willing to take it far, man. He was willing to take it far. And
Yeah,
it's actually, I didn't know, so it's actually based, I did think I did know it's based on a real story, um, of a guy who really did it. Probably was exaggerated a bit with the movies and everything like that. But it's one of those things where, um, the dad obviously loved his family. Otherwise, you wouldn't take, multiple people hostages and, shut
right,
down an entire ER to try and save your son's life. If you didn't love your kid, that
right,
probably wouldn't be the case.
right.
But, it was also one of those things that he had morals at the same time. Is that he had a code. Like, he wasn't just hurting people just to hurt people, just to get what he wanted. Yes,
Yeah,
he was holding people hostage, but and we're talking about movies. Like I said, we don't know.
yeah.
I didn't look into the real story and how that actually went. For all I know, he could have killed everybody. I don't know. Hopefully he didn't. Hopefully.
Mhm.
But it looked, there were some morals there where it was
Yeah,
like he wasn't just out to just destroy the world because he was hurt or because his family was hurt or get what he needed. He did what he had to do to get the result he wanted. But he did as little damage as he could in the
mhm,
process.
exactly.
So, it
Yeah,
wasn't just scorched earth, like I'm just gonna, completely, demolish, everybody's world around me because I have a problem type deal.
yeah,
It's
hundred
like
percent.
he almost had sympathy at certain points and like empathy for people like, hey, I hate that you're in this situation with me, but you are. So I'm gonna
Right.
try and make it best for both of us as possible in
Hmm.
this situation, and hopefully everyone makes it out okay. Is my
Yeah,
goal. Is not for anybody else to lose their life,
yeah, for sure.
including my son.
Hmm. And it was like that perfect, and it ends kind of sad, but I think his son does end up like living and all that. And then the scene at the end where he's like posing, because that was their like pose between the two of them. And like, first of all, your child having to need heart surgery is wild. Like, I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine. I would take the whole block hostage if I could. But he was like, at the end where his son was just grateful he didn't
Mhm.
see, the monster that maybe the media or the people on the outside would have saw, this crazy black man with a gun trying to hold, a whole
It was
hospital
actually a white
hostage.
guy. As it was actually was
Oh, the
based on, I
original?
think a white dude from what I was when I was looking it up.
Oh,
I think it
okay.
was actually based on a white guy actually. So that was
Okay.
that was and you couldn't do that today because
Well, that
people
makes more sense
he
now.
he wasn't black, he was white.
Right.
Why do you do that? People would be arguing. People argue just to argue now about
Yeah.
stuff. They'd be like, it's not realistic.
Hmm.
It's like it's a
Right.
movie. It's a
Right.
movie. Calm
Yeah.
down, just a little bit. Calm down.
Yeah. But that pose at the end where like that kid just saw his dad. He
Mhm.
didn't see, he didn't care about the gun. He didn't care about what he did. He was like, my
Yeah,
dad tried to save me. Like,
yeah.
yes,
Imagine that dude. Imagine that kid growing up knowing that your dad went to, an extreme level to save your life.
Yeah.
Did whatever he could in the beginning to, to do what he could do, uh, legally, this is legal wise. But when he was getting done dirty, was like, hey, gotta handle business.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like imagine that kid growing up and being like, what kind of pedestal, his dad is kind of put
Yeah.
on that kind of level, and what he has to live up to after that too, because your standards are raised extremely
Yeah.
high if see something like that play out,
Yeah, for
which a
sure.
lot of guys aren't experiencing now. That's why guys are so hungry for heroes,
Hmm.
these days.
Yeah.
Whether it be in movies and action movies and all these different things like that, or TV shows or video games or whatever it may be, guys are thirsty for that because we don't see that really enough in real life.
I mean, I would say people are starting to they're starting to take it from media and really interpret it into their own lives. But one thing that we didn't kind of talk about, even in the prep of it, is like anime or cartoons or like fiction. And yeah, you
Yeah.
laugh, but like people are
No,
like
I was
straight
just
up
thinking about
doing
that kid. that kid in school running around like Naruto.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what
oh
that's
yeah,
what I was thinking about. I was like, I knew that kid. I was actually friends with that kid. So
yeah,
it's like, so when you said anime, I was like, that people do get very influenced by anime. Absolutely,
yeah.
100%.
Absolutely. And like to the point where I see a lot of influencers or YouTubers that will emulate the workout routine of, like Spider-Man, Baki, whatever. Like they'll just
Hmm.
they'll whoever their favorite character is, they'll develop a workout system around that to try to look like that person. To the
Hmm.
point where like there's a dude walking around looking like Yujiro Hanma. There's another dude walking around like Baki. I know it's not realistic, but it's
Well, he
like,
was a
nah,
body.
this,
The guy like
yeah,
Yujiro was a bodybuilder already, so
yeah,
he
yeah,
already
yeah.
had the physique. But I think people just kept telling him, you look like Yujiro." So he just dyed his hair red, and he's like, "Screw it,
Yeah,
let's do
right. He's
it."
like, I'm gonna just be this guy now, which is
Yeah.
not a bad guy. He's not a great father, but not a bad guy to be. Not the best dad example, but like people will take media and try to find a way to see themselves in it and then move in it as well. You
Hmm.
know, and I think it's really inspirational. But like, where can you find a good father to emulate in media? And it's kind of harder now because a lot of the people who we might have looked up to in like the 90s are now in
Hmm.
jail or have some type of case against them, like the Cosby Show. There was another black show that I was looking at, but just him as an example aside, My Wife and Kids, if we're talking about TV, with the oldest Wayne's brother, I can't remember his name right now, but it becomes a little bit harder to
Uh,
find it.
Damon, is it
Yeah,
Damon?
Damon
Yeah,
Wayans. Yeah,
Damon Wayans. Hmm.
it's becoming a lot harder to find that readily available, like without
Yeah,
having to go back into like decades of
the
TV and
archives.
like yeah, for real. Like you got to go back into the archives to find something that is like worth real value. They'll still be a little bit goofy, but I haven't seen many examples definitely in movies or TV shows right now.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Oh, that's not supposed to be there. Never mind.
Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, no, it's one of those things that it was just realizing that some of us growing up as men have only gotten some of our like information of how to be a man and how to be a masculine man, and the morals and stuff like that from like movies and TVs. Like that's a sad fact, bro.
Oh
That's
yeah.
that did not make me happy to really, honestly, it doesn't make me happy to even really have to do a video like this,
Yeah.
because the fact that a lot of us, so many of us, have gotten our information from these different sources because we didn't have it in front of our faces.
Hmm.
We didn't pick up those lessons from like, hey son, come on over here, and come close and let me teach you about the world through stories and changing this oil that I'm going to tell you stories that have nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it's going to teach you something eventually.
Right. Right. The
you
repetition
know
of something, the need for discipline, how to
hmm
stand up for yourself, or figuring out what a rite of passage is for yourself. There's
yep.
definitely none of that being shown in movies. And even if you get a bad example, or rather, you'll see more bad examples than good. Or I would argue to say, like, here recently, we have a list of like the past 10 decade, or I'm sorry, the past decade of the different movies that did have these examples, but it has to be something that you've seen, so we can't really speak to those. But maybe is it like the examples that we kind of spoke about off camera were more for like black fathers.
hmm
You know what I mean? So why is it that you think that we're not seeing that right now in media?
I think just for like fathers in general, I think it's just not a popular thing, just because there is a war on masculinity. It's
Hmm.
like, if you look at who controls the media and movies and everything like that, they don't. The last thing they want is masculine men popping up,
Hmm.
because we cause problems. We could men, we as men, when we're masculine, when we're in tune with who we are and what we believe in, we're unshakable in like our morals, and that honorable masculinity that we talk about so much. We don't put up with bullshit.
Hmm.
We're not gonna let you warp the minds of our kids, and do certain things to our the people around us who we care about.
Yeah.
It's like a real man doesn't let somebody take advantage of people.
Hmm.
Is like that, whether that be, you physically taking advantage of somebody, you mentally taking advantage of it, or you emotionally through movies and media taking advantage of people and trying to trying to mold them into who you want them to be. It's like we just don't put up with that. Is like, that's the reason why a lot of the stuff that's rolled out now with just to, not to be controversial, but a lot of the the gender stuff and the the LBGQ, the alphabet, as Dave Chappelle says, alphabet people. I don't know all the letters. There's too many. But is like even to that effect, there's a reason why certain stuff wasn't rolled out until now, because if a lot of the things, like if you tried to put overly feminized men in like movies and TV shows and cartoons and stuff like that the kids are seeing, if you tried to do that like 40-50 years ago, you would have had a problem on your hands. It wouldn't have just been a conversation. You would have people showing up at your studio. You would have dads hopping off, getting off work from the mines, or getting off base from the military or the office or wherever they went to, the mechanic shop, wherever. You would have them rolling up to the studio like, "Hey, bro, no. We're not.
No
doing
son of
that.
mine will wear a dress. Like
we're not doing that. We're not doing it. If that's what you want to do on your own time, do you? It's like, but you're not gonna feed mine. You're not gonna program mine like that. Not happening. Not happening. If they choose to do that, it's gonna be of their own decision, not of yours.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there seems to be like a trend that happens where a lot of the positive male role models that you will see at some point have to do something that demasculates them.
Yes.
Whether it's Eddie Murphy or Martin Lawrence or I can't remember the kid's name. He was in a couple of movies, but he was also in Big Mama's House 2. Chris Tucker, Dave Chappelle at one point. He likes to say that he would have never done it, but there is footage out there of him in a dress at one point.
Jamie Foxx,
yeah.
Wesley Snipes did it.
Another Wayans brother, Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes was in the music video that played in The Last Dragon, where he was very flamboyant. And Ving Rhames, the biggest, blackest dude
Wesley
on TV.
Snipes was in drag. Remember that? Wesley Snipes. I think we talked about it. Wesley Snipes was in a movie about drag queens, and he played a drag queen in a movie. And like I said, people are like, "Well, it's just a movie." It's like, it's not. For some people, it's not just a movie.
Right.
That's the thing we're talking about. For some people, it's not just a movie. For some people, it's like seeing Wesley Snipes, seeing like Denzel Washington, seeing Samuel L. Jackson, seeing Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence, all these people, all these men in these some powerful roles. It's like action movies, and in these where they're lawyers or the movie 47, where you're the first baseball player. These iconic movies, Malcolm X. Seeing these grown-ups, seeing these actors play these roles, it inspired something. It inspires something in you when you don't have that in your own house, when you don't have that leading you. So it becomes more than just. Yes, you shouldn't be looking for your heroes in movies and shows and different things like that. But some people don't necessarily have other options necessarily. Unfortunately,
it became real clear, I would say, when Anthony Mackie became, I call him Captain Falcon, but he became the new Captain America. And then everybody was like, "Oh shit, he's gonna be Captain America. He's got the shield." Da, 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 da. And then right after that, right before the next Marvel project came up, he did Striking Vipers from Black Mirror, where. So you haven't seen that one. Oh, yeah, that's right. You haven't seen it. So Striking Vipers was a video game where you could basically put this chip on your temple and you could port yourself into the video game.
Okay.
He was playing this game with his friend, another guy, and they ended up having a romantic relationship in the game. Exactly. So, and then they got in real life, and it was like, "Oh, I can't believe that happened," blah blah blah. And they started kissing and sleeping together. And his wife was cool with it. Like he had been married for like a good minute, and then she would like once she caught him, because she was like, well, he's got to be cheating or something because he's not giving me the same attention, and then come to find out he's sleeping with his homeboy in this video game.
Wow.
And she ended up like letting him like once a year go in and like have the time with him and all that stuff. And I was like, why is this the next thing that happens after you basically become America's savior? Why is that the next project?
Yeah, I'm not gonna get too heavy into it, especially for the stream. But there was a very popular thing in history called buck breaking.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
So if you're not familiar,
Google it.
look it up, but not with your kids around.
Right.
That was done where it's to publicly humiliate creatures of the male persuasion, we'll say, to show the other males that they need to stay in line because we have the power over you. You don't have power.
Right.
It's basically it, and it's one of those things now where yes, it was associated with slavery and everything like that, but it's not necessarily anymore. Anybody can get buck broke now, and it's just one of those things where there's almost seems to be a thing in media where it's you have to keep the power dynamic kind of skewed a certain kind of way to like kind of leaning towards a certain type of way. And I think it's just, the way Hollywood is. I have a cousin who's worked in the industry, and some of the stuff he tells me, or even the mindset that there is out there in like California and different things like that, is a very different mindset than a lot of us have in the rest of the country, let alone the rest of the world. So it's the things that they find acceptable, we'll say, I think are very different than most of us.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And the more kind of like I'm a big behind the scenes type person when it comes to movies, and I realize that there is a lot of symbolism in what you do with a person, and even the next thing that they do. I mean, like a lot of people get cornholed into a certain role after they played it for so
Literally.
long. Damn it! I didn't mean to make that joke. But they'll start with something like an action role, or it'll be a part of a series like Game of Thrones or something,
or a
and
villain
they've
or
seen
something.
you, yeah, and they've seen you do that for so long, they don't want to put you in anything else because they don't think you have range. So you can, like, if you're not playing enough characters, then people do associate you with whatever the main character that you played with. There's one black dude, I can't remember his name right now, but he plays a bad guy in like every Tyler Perry movie, every like hood movie or whatever, to the point where like if you see him, you're like, oh, he's a villain. Like he's probably a bad person in real life. But it's not real life. But to your point, people, if they see you do enough stuff in a certain light, they can only associate you with that thing, with that light. So when you do things like, like Ving Rhames, I don't know why he's an example that comes to mind, but they've gotten him twice where he played Holiday Heart, where he was a cross-dressing man that took in a woman and her daughter. And then he got graped.
He got used.
He got used
viciously.
Fuck is that? Pulp Fiction. Which I love that movie except for that part. So it's like, damn, like this clearly
he got gagged, we'll say.
He could be like clearly powerful character that you choose to go a different route with. And then now, even if it's not like the big role that he was associated with, just the fact that you see him in a dress, you see him in that position, you're not going to forget that. You know what I mean? So it's not, his presence isn't as powerful, because even if it's not real, he let himself do that thing. And I'm not, it's like when you're an actor, your whole job is to play pretend. Let's not get it twisted. Like your whole job is to bring us into the reality of the thing that you're trying to make. However, it does put a caveat on, that's my hero, or that's my Captain America, or that's my Blade, or whatever you want to call it, because this thing happened on the back end of it. So it's like almost subliminal to be like, yeah, he's really good except for this thing, and don't forget that, because it's gonna change the way you see that person.
It's one of those things where it's I wonder, some of those guys who play in roles like that and play in movies like that, I wonder if it's a matter of like, if it is a matter of buck breaking, not, but Or
It's not
if
funny,
it's
but like,
yeah, yeah, it's is it that? Is it you have to kind of bow down, or is it one of those things? So many jokes.
I
Um,
know this is not. Stop it. It's not the time.
is like, or is it is it that, or is it one of those things where it's like your moral compass just allows you to do certain things? Because I know there are certain actors who are like, I would this is a role I've turned down roles because it didn't fit like my morals. Like
Yeah.
a lot of not to get religious, but there are a lot of like Christian actors and different things like that who are like, I got kind of blackballed because I wasn't willing to do this thing
Yeah.
because of my morals and my beliefs and my religion and all these different things like this. So no matter what you believe, I
Yeah.
think there's and we talk about it. Dave Chappelle's, I think dad told him when he started getting into acting and going to Hollywood, he was like, name your price.
Mhm.
It's like, name your price, and if it costs too much, if it ever goes above that, get out of there.
Yeah.
It's like, so you got to know what line you're willing to draw in the sand. Like, hey, I'm not willing to. There's certain things that I'm not willing to do. These are my non-negotiables. I'm not willing to, be a straight man in Hollywood and do a graphic, man-on-man scene or do these different things like that because, and I almost think like, okay, even like the Anthony Mackie thing is like, this dude has sons. I think he has all sons.
Yeah. He has 4 boys, I think.
It's like, so you have 4 boys, and you work, you got in as Captain America. First you were the Falcon and everything like that. A black superhero, like, bro, is
Mhm.
not a lot of those, like out
Yeah.
of comic books and
Yeah.
cartoons and stuff like that. So you go from, like the black superhero, blah blah blah, running with Captain America and the Hulk and all these different, boom, Diesel. You go from that to being with a
Striking Vipers.
dude, being with a dude in a video game,
Yeah.
and you might be, playing this, thing, this role, this odd slipped into, I slipped and fell into it type situation. And not to get too personal, but what are his sons thinking about when they see that?
Yeah.
It's like, because they might not be seeing it now because they might be too young, but as you get older and you kind of look at your dad's like history of his movies, and you look at the catalog, like, yeah, man, he played in this, my dad played in this, and what is this? And you watch that,
that MDB gonna be wild.
and you hit the trailer on that movie, and you're like, whoa, daddy, hey, whoa.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are they looking at you for? And some people would be like, well, that's brave. It's like, that's fine, and if you think that's brave, that's cool. For me, I don't think I would want, when I have kids, and you can speak more of this as a father, I wouldn't want my son to be looking at me like, yeah, I know you. So you were acting? Yeah, that was acting. But you were kissing another dude. It's acting.
Right. Right.
But you were kissing another dude because I'm a kid. Hey, dude, kids will get real with you real quick.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like, so at what point are you acting? You're not acting.
Yeah. And it's
When do
like
you
I said,
cross that line? You know what I mean?
yeah, the
When does
MDB.
make believe cross into reality? Is my question.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think it crosses into reality when people
And I'm
see
not saying
you.
anything just to put out. I'm not calling Anthony Mackie gay or da 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 da. So don't even come for us like that. It's not.
What it does put that last episode that we did about the death of masculinity, that was all about his comments about how to be a man of presence and knowing
Yeah.
that we are scanning the surrounding area, being able to take care of your people and all that stuff. And he talked about that a lot, and he even talked a little bit of trash about men in different cities or different
He's talking
countries
about Europe.
where
He's talking about
like
Europe and how
where
like
masculinity is not a
feminine they are and stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah. It's like, go make daddy a sandwich, all that good
right,
stuff. It's like, so you say all that, and then you
and
turn
striking
around, and
vipers.
that's why
You know?
I'm like, okay, are you like, somebody tap you on the shoulder and was like, hey, bro, we
Yeah,
choose you, but in order for us to, in order for you to be Captain America,
yeah.
we're gonna require you to bow down.
And I wonder why that is the requirement. Like, it's either you're putting somebody who clearly has that masculine presence in a dress, or you're making whatever father figure, like we said, more in TV and less in movies. Kind of started with some movies that we can get into, but the father is some type of incompetent. He's not
Simpsons, Family Guy, it's
Cleveland
like,
Show, American
yeah,
Dad, like all of that.
yeah,
Even he was working for the government, was like an assassin, and was still like he couldn't keep it together at home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a weird dynamic.
Home
And not to say that,
improvements, all, it's like, constantly stuff like that, man.
yeah. Why is it that men can't be portrayed as the foundation of the family or able to support in all ways without there being some type of deep flaw where he's beating his kids or beating his wife or
Or
can't keep
getting
his
beat
shit
by his wife.
together or getting beat by his wife or he's like secretly gay or whatever. Like if you're gay, that's fine.
Mhm.
But why does every character need to have some type of perceived flaw? Because I'm not saying that it's a flaw to be gay. I'm just
Mhm.
saying that it's a flaw to, if these men don't want to do this thing, why are they being forced to either, like you said, kiss the ring, bow down, and they
Yeah.
can't get the real roles where they a lot more inspirational to people? Denzel Washington said he would never do that. I think Samuel Jackson said he would never do it. They were
Mhm.
able to get away with that, but how many more men are we not seeing getting turned away for roles because they choose not to go that route?
Yeah, man. It gets deep, and I think it gets dark at a certain point if you keep going down the rabbit hole, to turn a pun. Um,
So many puns.
I'm gonna keep just hitting with them.
So many.
I can't help it. I can't help it. But yeah, man. But let's get back to the examples,
Yeah,
because we're getting a little bit off track and heading down another road
for
there.
sure. For sure.
Because we're talking about kind of like the why, but when have we seen these things kind of play out?
Mhm.
Like, what are some examples you found of like a solid father, played in like a movie, for instance, like a good masculine example of a father, or just a man in a movie,
Does he
moving
have to
righteously.
does he have to be a biological father? That's the one thing we didn't like really put a
Let's
caveat
just say masculine man, because we tried the
Okay.
father thing, and that kind of,
It didn't work.
yeah, that didn't work too well. Which
Yeah.
like says the whole, we were gonna make that video initially, it's like, but it's one of those things where,
Yeah.
to expand on it, to get a little more, to get this out to a wider audience, we were like, okay, we'll add the fathers into the more of the like the masculine man piece of
Yeah.
things.
Okay. So it's a little cheesy, but the first one that comes to mind is Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid. He
Okay.
took in Daniel LaRusso, who was new in town, troubled, like was getting in trouble first day of school. I can't remember how they met. I think Mr. Miyagi saved him from getting bullied on Halloween or something
Wasn't
like
Mr.
that.
Miyagi like the janitor at the school or something like that?
No, he didn't even work at the school. He was just around. Like he saw some shit going on and he was like, "Nope, I'm stepping in." And
Just the
then
old Asian guy walking by from the store, huh?
yeah, yeah, I
Like,
don't want any trouble. And then just started kicking everybody's ass. But when he took him in, he taught him patience. He taught him manners. He taught him how to protect himself. He
how
taught
to
him
pick up chicks.
he taught him how to pick up chicks. He taught him how to how do you have some type of hobby where you can get that you can so with the bonsai trees is how to care for something and also meditative
Find peace.
practice, finding peace. Taught him how to catch flies with chopsticks. He taught him when you're in competitions not to be not to be rude or like an asshole to your opponents,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Honor.
Like honor. Yeah, thank you. He taught him honor, which got brought back in other movies as well. So he's giving him all these life lessons and teaching him how to even fix a car, but giving him all these life lessons with no requirement for get back. He didn't ask for anything in return. He was just like, hey, I can teach you how to be a better person, how to be a man.
Yeah.
All I'm asking is that you continue to walk that path and do that for other people as well. So and even when people were messing with him a lot, Mr. Miyagi, he only did enough to where he was able to get away safely. He had plenty of opportunities to break somebody, really break somebody down, an attacker that was and then it was he showed restraint and was able to show a child this is how you can be powerful and yet flexible at the same time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. What was one of yours?
John Q, we had Mr. Miyagi. Man. This is gonna take me back to childhood. The grandpa from Three Ninjas.
Oh wow, that's a deep cut. I was like, Three Ninjas. Oh yeah.
Flashback. Three
Right.
Ninjas. Yeah. Or Or here's the even better one. Here's the even better one. This is more of a TV show.
Yeah.
Master Splinter.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw somebody. I forget the gentleman's name, but he was talking about how Master Splinter is the real star of the show.
Yeah.
For the TMNT, he was like, teenagers that are like eating pizza and practicing karate, and they don't go out much. They're always playing video games in the sewer. That sounds like
Yeah.
regular teens. This man who took in 4 kids who look nothing like him by himself, raised
Play
them up and
stepdaddy
taught
with
them
no
right.
benefits at
He's
all.
stepdaddy with no benefits. And I was like, you know what? He's not wrong.
It's like playing stepdaddy and not even getting none, because you're definitely not getting none as a giant rat in the sewer with a bunch of teenage Ninja Turtles running around.
No,
You're
for
you're
sure.
not getting no kind of action. So you'll be meditating your ass off.
Right. Right.
It's
You know,
a lot of
that's why
cold,
he's so
lot of
strong.
cold showers, a lot of meditating, a lot
Right.
of cold water.
For real. But you know, and it's unfortunate, but like the fact that we have to go to a cartoon to even be like, yeah, that's a good
Well,
dad.
I
Like,
mean, I go to it because it had such an impact on my childhood.
no, for
Like
sure.
being
For
in
sure.
martial arts, and the situation I kind of came up with is like not
Yeah.
really having that like male guidance like on a regular
Mm-hmm.
basis. Is like, so yeah, it's like, yeah, I leaned heavy into, like you were talking about, the anime and cartoons, and yeah, Master Splinter, the guidance she would give like every
Yeah.
episode of like, you must ease your mind. This is why I gave you the tools. This is why we do that. Now let's
Right.
go have pizza. I was like, damn,
Right.
I want a dad like him.
Right. Right. He's strict and disciplined with this thing. But he
Yeah,
also can feed you pizza. Like, he's fine.
and like I said, taught that balance, because he never took things too far. He was he had to, like Raphael, he had to temper his fire. Like, you need to calm down, otherwise you will end up taking somebody out and doing a lot of damage. And Michelangelo, you need to take yourself more seriously. I
Yeah.
can just totally nerd out on this whole thing of like the different, but he tailored
Yeah.
his teachings to each of them.
Right.
And it was one of those things like to watch, to see, four brothers, one all being different dudes, solid dudes, but
Mm-hmm.
being led by this one guy who had something to give to each of them in his own way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that suited them. That is what they needed. It was
Yeah.
it wasn't what he wanted to give them. It was what they needed to become. Do
The best
turtles
version of
become men?
themselves.
To become the men, to become the best grown turtles that they could be.
Turtles
Yeah, that's
become, when they're old enough, they become tortoises.
to become the best tortoises they could be. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
But yeah.
The one that I really, really enjoyed,
Mhm.
and isn't even about, it's about masculinity, but it's about how a man walks on his journey of masculinity.
Mhm.
Was Circle of Iron with David Carradine. I
Yeah.
know I've talked about this movie like 1,000 times, but to me, it's like one of those old cheesy, like super. What is it? It came out in '78, so all the
Mhm.
action is like super cheesy, coming out around the same time as like Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan the Barbarian type stuff.
Yeah.
And it's about this guy. They have to, he has to compete in this tournament to walk this path. So
Mhm.
like he ends up cheating, but he wins.
Okay.
And everybody's like, "Oh, you cheated! You're disqualified." And he was like, "Nobody said I could do this. Blah blah blah. I'm gonna walk this path anyway.
Mhm.
Try and stop me." So the guy he beat ends up walking the path with him because he's like, "You stole my honor," or whatever, and they go from there. But as he's walking this path, he gets hit with all these obstacles, and the goal of it at the end is to the goal at the end is
Was somebody
to
walking their path behind you?
yeah, no, saw the door move. Um, the goal is to get to this island where
Mhm.
you're supposed to seek out this master, and this master is going to teach you all the ways of the universe and all this stuff. The ultimate teacher is supposed to be,
Mhm.
but there's a lot that he has to contest with on the way to this master. He ends up dealing with basically like this monkey king type of character, where it's more just like a symbolism of the animal version of us, where it's not controlled and it's very unpredictable, and it's like you have to hone your animal side before you can move on to anything relevant or anything
Yeah.
that is like that higher version of yourself. He ends up running into this czar that lives in this desert, but before he even gets to the czar, he had already been on a 1 year like celibacy streak, and he runs
Hmm.
into this guy in the desert where he's like in this giant cauldron, and he's like, "Sir, why are you in this cauldron?" And it's actually like this vat of like hot oil, and he's disintegrating himself like from the waist down. Yeah. And he's like, why are you doing this? And he was like, because I couldn't control my lust. My my manhood has been a major problem for me, even with my wife and stuff. I'd rather just be rid of it, which I don't know if anybody else has ever felt like that, but like it can
There's some
be
easier ways to do that than dissolving
for
yourself
sure.
in hot oil. It's like
Yeah.
that's a bit that's a new one. I never heard that one before. That is
Right.
a new one.
But the gist of it was he was like, look, I've done the celibacy thing many times. I've found enlightenment. This lust thing is going to be a problem. So I'd rather just get rid of it, and then I'll always be able to be the highest version of myself. And then the guy, he's like, yeah, nope. I'm going to go
One
ahead and
that
go
one
this
that
way.
doesn't solve the problem, you're gonna end up you're gonna turn the energy into something else. So that
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
actually solve your problem.
for
It
sure.
might do from that. It's like, well, I don't have my jewels anymore, don't have my boys anymore, so I'm just gonna start drinking.
Right.
It's just
For
the
real.
thing. If you go,
Um,
what are you gonna do when you're just a drunk all the time now? It's like, what are you gonna do then? It's like, I'm gonna disintegrate my throat. I'm gonna sew my mouth shut so I can't drink anymore. It's like, bro.
right. No, yeah, it's very extreme. But like what was
Yeah.
cool is that when he gets to this czar, he
Mhm.
fights him, but he's like, you know what? I don't want to fight. I want you, like, you want one of my wives? I got like 9 wives. I ain't using one right now. Why don't you go sleep with her, have a good time, and continue your journey? The guy actually gives in and is like, you know what? I will sleep with this lady. She ends up getting sacrificed at like on the back half of that, like the whole place he's at
Like
disappears. Yeah,
afterwards, like,
afterwards.
oh,
Yeah. He totally gives in, and then he meets
well, he didn't have
David
to call
Carradine,
her
who
the
is
next
the
day, so
yeah. So he ends up meeting his master, and he's like, teach me what you've learned so far. And he was like, I was celibate for a year. I threw it away yesterday for a woman I'll probably never see again, and
one
I'm
night stand.
conflicted. Yeah, one night stand. Like I'm conflicted. And he's like, well, he's like, celibacy is not the key to your success. Also,
Mhm.
sleeping with the opposite sex isn't necessarily a total deterrent from being able to get to that end point. But you just need to have balance. You need to be able to
Mhm.
balance out your life. And like, I've read books that said that celibacy isn't the way either. And people who do like the extreme chastity, they're just
Mhm.
causing themselves a lot more problems. So I was like, damn, this movie is like too deep. Did they end up dealing with a version of death that is like, you have to be able to stare death in the face and not be afraid and understand that it's actually not, death is not what you think it is, therefore you shouldn't be afraid of it. And he just goes through all these different lessons, and I'm like, bruh, every man should watch this movie because it's just hitting on so many points. And I was but at the end, it's like you can search for this wisdom, but you can end up being a slave to the journey. You can end up being a slave to what you're finding, because that knowledge can be a burden, to the point where the master was like, hey, you want my job? You can have my job. It's cushy here. Everybody's serving you. It's fine. Like, go ahead and take it. I've done this long enough. And he ends up not taking it because he's like, my life is more important than, in so many words, he was like, my life is more important than this ultimate knowledge. Like, the experience that I've gained is more important than just having the knowledge. I want to be able to live it.
Mhm.
So all that's a long-winded way of saying, like, this movie was super powerful for me, because it's like, yeah, these are things that every man faces on his journey, whether it's conflict or women or death or the ultimate becoming and
Vats
what
of
you want to do
oil.
with life. Vats of oil, you know what I'm saying? Baby oil. But it's just like, figure out,
Wow. Wow. Had
there's
it
Diddy in that
had it
cauldron.
had to throw that in there, huh? Had to sneak that one in there, huh? So
Right. But yeah,
Diddy was in
I
that
would
culture.
definitely say that, like, being on the journey of becoming your own master
Mhm.
was the ultimate lesson of that movie, and like all the pieces that you need to deal with on the way there. So I think it's a good, like, kind of blueprint for men if they're able to
Yeah.
kind of pick up those things.
For sure. Um, I got one more I thought of
Yeah.
right as you were talking about the journey, and we'll get into like the some of the not so great examples
Hmm.
of like masculinity and stuff like that. We touched a little bit about it, kind of like the men in the dress thing, and why guys do some of these things, but like actually talking
Yeah.
about some of these characters. Um, Blood and Bone,
Oh.
Bone, Bone from Blood and Bone, because it reminds me of like a spaghetti western,
Yeah.
like an urban kind of spaghetti western. Like this guy, is in jail. You don't know what he's in jail for. You don't know what his past is at all. It's just a mystery. It's like just kind of comes in like a tsunami, He's just out of
Yeah.
nowhere and like leaves just as quickly. You know, it's like, but he comes in. For those guys that don't know, Michael Jai White played Blood. Did a movie called Blood and Bone where he was in prison. His best friend in prison gets killed. The guy's gonna, he has a wife and a son on the outside. He's about to get out, gonna go see his wife and his son. Ends up getting murdered in the prison before he gets out.
Yeah.
Bone goes and tries to find his family and figures out what's going on with them. Tracks him down. In the process, becomes a street fighter for money. Just kicking ass all over the place. Him and his Timberlands. Kicking you.
He only fights in Timberlands.
Kicking you in your face. Yeah, he only fought in Timbs and a wife beater, like a jeans, Timbs, and a wife beater.
Right. For real.
It's like just showed up, just not stressing or anything like that, and just heel kicking you in the face with his Timbs. So he got a Timberland imprint right here on your cheek. But yeah, so he ends up going through this whole process to get closer to finding out what happened to his how he found out where his friend's wife was and who she was attached to, like the big time gangster who she was with. How he found that out, we don't know. Like I said, once again, mystery. But the whole thing of coming into this situation that didn't have anything to do with him, because he was loyal to his friend who he built in prison, going and finding his family and trying to bring his family, his wife and his kid, out of the situation that they were in. Involved in this, caught up in this, gangster drugs, all these different things like that going on, underground fights and all this chaos, trying to bring them out. And then at the end, almost like walking off into the sunset with nothing but the bag he came with. Not asking anybody for anything, not even expecting a thank you or to get the girl at the end of the movie, nothing, not expecting any of that. Like, hey, I came to do this thing, singularity of focus. Didn't get distracted by the money, the offers of fame and rewards and women and all these different things like that he could have got. Just came in singularity of focus and, with honor, like a guy coming out of prison, but coming out with honor, talking about martial arts and talking about the philosophy of the samurai and all these different things like that. And moving in such a way where you're honoring not just yourself, but your friend in the memory of him and trying to do right by his family. And then leaving that was just, it was epic, man, to see. Like I said, it reminded me of like an urban, cowboy story.
Ronin.
Yeah, it was a true Ronin. Exactly. True Ronin, because it was one of those things like he moved in such a way that even the people he was around, even though he was in that environment where it was like in the mud, in the muck, with drugs and money and sex and violence and all these different things like that, he didn't play in that same mud with those people. It was almost like, even though he was in the mud with them, in that same environment with them, he didn't hold himself above it, but you could just tell he wasn't in that same space as them. It's like it was like he was moving in a different world, a different reality than they were. Because he held true to his principles and who he was and the things he was doing as a martial artist and other things like that. So it was definitely a powerful story of like that's, like I said, that singularity of purpose, that mind, that moving with honor, moving with respect, and no matter where you find yourself in a situation, never losing track of who you are.
The best quote from that movie was like at the end, but it was also from him when he was talking to the main like top boss street dude. He was like, "I am the punishment of God, and if you had not committed great sins, God would not send such a punishment like me upon you." And I was like, "That's some cold shit." That's right up there with Ezekiel 25:17 from Pulp Fiction.
That is from
Genghis Khan.
Yep. Yep. All right, so let's talk about some of the less desirables that we found in media and social media and all these different things like that.
So we kind of touched on it for a hot second, but I would say Yujiro Hanma from Baki, the worst dad. He's the worst, but he's like the worst in like a trolling way, because this man, he's known as the strongest creature on earth, and he has one child.
I think they say something like that.
So he has one kid who he only. He has two kids.
But
Oh, that's right. That's right. He spread his
Yeah, way
seed
more than
far and
2.
wide.
Yeah, way
Yeah,
more than 2. He was out there.
right,
He was out there spreading his. He's like, yeah,
right.
it's
Well, the only ones he really messed with,
repopulating the planet.
yeah, was Baki, and he only wanted to raise him to be the strongest so that he could fight, so somebody could like beat him or something. Like he
Mhm.
just wanted. He said the only person who's strong enough to beat me is my own offspring, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
wanted to
wow,
test himself. Yep.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, but he ended up killing Baki's mom because she was just in the way. He snuck in on his son the first time he lost his virginity and congratulated the girl and was like, "Yeah, you are good enough for my son. Make sure you're good and hydrated and give him plenty of kids." And I'm
Make him
like,
a man.
"Whoa, boundaries."
Make a man. Make a man of him.
Right. And like proceeds to almost beat his son to death for like 4 different iterations of the same
That's
show.
hilarious.
So, but everybody
He did
fears
save him
him.
like once or twice too, though. He did save him like once or
He
twice.
did save him once or twice. Killed his pet ape. He had a whole pet. He
It was
killed
his
him.
friend. It wasn't a pet. It was his
And
friend.
then sent him his head in a box. This man is devious.
That was his homie. That was his pet. That was his homie.
Right. But I would say the one thing that was like so admirable about him is that he didn't give a fuck about nobody. Like he moved, he was like, who gonna check me? Presidents couldn't check me, kings couldn't check me, whole woolly mammoths couldn't check me, cavemen can't check me. He was just like, he is the man, and he walked like that. And he never took shit off of nobody. Everybody, even the strongest other fighters in the show, was like they all feared and respected him. But he just moved in his purpose. Like the one thing that is admirable by him is that like he didn't let nobody tell him what he could and couldn't
Singularity
do.
of focus.
Singularity of focus.
He did have singularity of focus. He was definitely definite about his purpose in life.
Right. For real. But
Yeah. He's an arrogant asshole, but he was a focused arrogant asshole.
right. Right. He didn't do nothing that he never not trained a day in his life. He was always trying to test himself to make sure he kept his his title as the strongest. He wanted his son to be the strongest as well. He was like, anybody from my bloodline gonna have them hands. You know what I mean? But but with Baki though, he definitely got the he wanted to have like just a traditional father and just didn't get that. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people, he didn't get that. But all he wanted was, or even after he killed his mom, all he wanted was a real relationship with his dad and to have a family. And everybody hated him just because he was strong like his dad. You know what I'm saying? Everybody feared him almost as much as him. But at the end, he was able to kind of like force his dad to give him that relationship. He was like, we'll hug and have a nice meal if you beat me. And then he was like, shit, now I gotta have a nice meal. But he would keep his word with that as well. So nobody's perfect, but he was definitely like a bad example of the kind of father you want.
100%.
Yeah.
Man, my example. Man, we could go anime for sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what my second example was supposed to be.
Oh, you already know what your first one is. Go ahead.
Goku from Dragon Ball Z.
There it is.
Goku from Dragon Ball Z.
Bad dad of the century.
Bring the smoke. Bring the smoke. I don't care. Vegeta was a better father than Goku was.
Yep. Sure was.
Vegeta, but Vegeta, the guy who wanted to destroy the universe, destroy the planet, ended up being a better father than Goku.
I mean, Piccolo.
Goku sacrificed his life. Goku sacrificed his life for the world, not for his sons. Not for his sons. He didn't sacrifice his life for his sons.
They don't count. They're in the world, so they don't count.
It's one thing if you just do it mainly if that's your priority. Is like his priority was never his kids.
That's true.
His priority was never his kids. So you can't convince me that he did sacrifice himself. That was like a side effect. Like I'm going to sacrifice myself anyway. And oh, by the way, I'm saving your life too, buddy.
Right.
Have a good one. Keep training.
You enjoy that.
I'll see you when I get back. Right. So he didn't sacrifice. And then the biggest, and people are going to talk about it online all the time. It's like having Gohan fight Cell. That's one thing. Having him fight him is like if you think you can't beat him and you think your son can, that's one thing. But why would you not let your son have the biggest and greatest advantage to do this, especially when the world's at stake?
Yeah.
You're gonna throw this for those who haven't seen it. There's a tournament. There's an android that is threatening to destroy the world, and nobody can seem to take this guy out. So he has this big. They have this big tournament because he wants to have this tournament and fight all the best fighters in the world, and starts just walking through them like they're paper dolls.
Yeah.
So Goku, the main character of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and all the other ones, comes in and he fights them after everybody else gets their ass whooped, and gets to a certain point of the fight, hasn't died, isn't to the point where he can't stand or anything like that. It was just like, I'm done.
Yeah, he gave up.
It's like because he knew he couldn't beat him, so he just which that turned me off so bad because I've never seen a main character like Goku quit. You never saw him quit. That's the only time I ever really saw him quit.
Yeah.
That bothered the hell out of me.
I think it was just so that his son could have the chance to be the hero he knew he could be. However, despite the fact that they spent a year in the time chamber, he never let him in on the plan. Like he was just like, yeah, we're gonna train for a year, and then
I'm gonna throw you the wolves.
Because the whole time he kept asking him like, hey, you can beat Cell, right? You can beat Cell, right? You can beat Cell, right? And
he was like, I don't know. Maybe. He's like, maybe, and then you take a nap.
Right.
He's
Like,
my dad's so confident he's over there sleeping. Look at that. He's so confident.
Right.
It's like, yeah, he's confident he's gonna throw your ass to the wolves.
Right. And then I'm rewatching the Boo saga, which is the thing that happens right after that.
Wait, before we get to that. So
yeah.
My beef with Goku is this. It's just so when people come to me, they have the data. This is why my beef is with him. Not only did you quit, which you're a quitter now, which I don't like quitters. You're a quitter. You've never quit before, but you decide now to quit when everything's at stake. Right. When the worst threat that you ever met is right in front of you, you decide to all of a sudden you want to quit and tap out and tag your son in, like you said, who's not part of the plan, and hasn't prepared himself mentally, which you probably knew you couldn't prepare him mentally to go be in that situation. But you like throw 11. Him into this situation that's probably that he doesn't think he can win, that nobody else thinks he can win. That the guy he's fighting is like laughing at you about. And then to just for shits and giggles, you decide to toss the guy who was about to whoop up on your son. You decide to toss him something to give him an advantage, a sensu bean, which is basically like you pop it and it gives you takes you back to like full strength and recovers all your injuries and everything. After you've been whooping up on him, after everybody tried to get their licks in, and some of them got shots and most of them didn't, and you got your shots and whooped them up and you kind of did your thing.
At least got him down enough to be
even though you were getting your ass whooped, you did some damage to him. You decided to throw this sensu bean to the guy who's about to romp on your son. And be like, all right, son, go get him now.
Right.
Worst father ever.
But after that, though, remember he died from trying to beat Cell, and then ended up like they tried to wish him back, and he was like, nah, I think all the trouble keeps coming to Earth because I'm alive, so I'm gonna stay dead. Came back 7 years later, wait for it, just to fight in the tournament, not to see his kids, not to see his new kid that was born while he was gone. Mm-hmm. He was like, oh, there's a little me behind my wife. That's cool. Yep. Anyway, about this tournament. Like, he only came back for the day just to fight. Trash. Pure trash. Yeah, I got you. So, and I know like we're nerding out about that, but like these are real examples that people use, and there's lots of debates all over the internet about it as well. But it's just accountability. Accountability is the thing that is missing from that particular story. Thinking about another one, I would say Red. You know what? I would say Red Foreman from that 70s show is kind of a bad dad. All he did, he allowed his friend or his son's friends to come in and like have their run in the house and all that stuff, and he would like basically provide a safe space. But if he didn't threaten every child that came through there, like every teen about something, you know what I mean, and he wasn't very attentive to his kid in Eric, you know what I mean, like I think he tried to raise him the best that he could, but he wasn't really trying to be like the best dad. He was more of like a fences type of dad, where, like, I don't have to like you. I raise you and I give you food and you have shelter. Shut up, kind of thing. So if you missed it, I was talking about Red Foreman from that '70s show. Right,
Yeah.
he's not the best dad. I mean, he's not a terrible dad, but he's more of like a fences type of dad. Like he takes care of his family, probably loves his family, but like threatens his kid every chance he gets. Calls all of his friends dumbasses. They're smoking weed in his basement all the time, and he just doesn't seem to be that caring per se. Active,
Yeah.
but not the best.
Hmm. This is true. This is
Yeah,
true. Now there was one scene that I did see in that show where it was like I guess they went hunting,
yeah.
and he and Red were talking. He's like, tell me what you really think about me. And he's like, I think you're angry because life didn't work out the way you planned.
He was talking to his dad, or his dad was
He
talking
was
to him.
talking. He was talking to his dad. He's like, I think you're so angry because life didn't work out the way you thought. The way you thought it was, the way you had planned it. The life didn't work out, and you're angry about that. And you ride me so hard because you want me to be tough enough to not have that same experience as you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he kind of looked at me. He was like, "You're not a dumbass." he's like, "You're not as dumb as you look." All right, cool,
Right.
awesome. I think you're
Which
gonna be
was
okay. I think you're gonna be all right.
right. Which was the closest he got to opening up as an individual, like, as a human being.
The closest, and it only lasted like 10 seconds.
Right. Right. You need to
Oh man,
see now. What's cool is you should watch F is for Family, which is you know who Bill Burr is.
yeah,
He's for those who don't know, Bill Burr is a comedian, pretty famous right now, and he ended up doing a cartoon about his home life as he was growing up. He had a really kind of detached and angry dad. Mom really didn't know what to do with him, a couple of siblings or whatever, but it really shows. Frank Murphy is his dad. Frank Murphy's my favorite TV dad because he's so bad at being a dad. He shows that version of a father who tried to do his best. Like you said, maybe life didn't go his way, and he's just struggling with how he was raised.
yeah.
And while he's trying to raise his kids, he treats them all differently. He's got an older son, a younger, a middle son, and then a young daughter. He loves the shit out of his young daughter. Treats the two boys like crap. The oldest one is not the smartest. The youngest one is kind of a sissy, but it's just like he's doing his best kind of thing. But he takes on crappy jobs and works at the airport, so it's like minimum wage or something like that. He's not getting the respect that that he feels like he deserves at home or at work. He's like the whipping boy for the guy who owns the company, and he's like constantly drinking, just trying to figure his own shit out. But he's so angry that he ends up exploding on everybody in the house at any given moment. The guy's just a powder keg, but he knows it and he's trying to figure it out. But as every time he makes a little bit of progress, some bullshit happens and he ends up taking 2 steps back. And truthfully, that's most people.
Yeah.
Is if you don't have that emotional control, you don't have that range, you end up exploding on people. Sorry, pause. you end up
We're not doing the pause thing. We don't do the pause thing. We're not doing it. We're not doing the pause thing. No, we're not playing the pause game. We're not those type of dudes. We're not going to be.
I know, but it's funny. It counts as a pun to me. So he ends up.
You do it because it makes me make the space like.
But he ends up trying to figure it. His dad comes back in his life, and it's the dad that did the same thing he was doing to his kids. He's doing to him. So he's trying to get a relationship back with his dad, and he gives him a hug one time and thinks everything is fixed. I know people in my own life who act like that, where it's once you get a little bit of love from mommy and daddy that you didn't get previously, you think everything is okay. No, one therapy session is not going to do it. So you need to be able to process it, but he's just trying to figure it out as life goes on, and he's so defeated because again, life didn't go his way. And I think it's just a really powerful. It's plenty of comedy, but there's a lot of darkness in there too, where it's just a good reminder as a new dad, pump your brakes, make sure that you're having some type of emotional and mental control. Don't be trying to put whatever you didn't get on him, and because it's not fair. You can't push whatever you think is okay now because you didn't get what you want and kind of toughen it out, like you say, putting the rocks in the rucksack.
Yeah.
Instead of just dealing with it. And then now your kids are like, why is dad so angry? No, it's like because you exist. It's because he had you out of wedlock or whatever, and now he can't live his life.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're the problem. And like, I've been able to control a good amount of my life to get to where I am now, but it was because of the fear of what am I going to become if I don't?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's a good example of a dad that just like he's trying, but like he is very much out of whack.
Yeah, that makes sense. As far as like the reality dad, the dads in like movies or shows or anything like that, there's just so many terrible choices. Like almost every guy in the Tyler Perry movie, or like a romantic comedy or something like that. All the all the dads in anime shows that you never actually see. You only see the mom raising the son. He has a dad, but he's away somewhere working.
He's either away or
overseas. Yeah. Well, the dad one, that's an excuse. That's a pretty good excuse. But like overseas working, and you never see. I was like, "Where's your dad?" Oh, he's overseas working. Or it's like, "Oh, my dad's away on business." No, your dad left to go get milk and cigarettes and never came back. So those are all terrible, terrible examples. I would say probably one that impacted me the most was Will Smith's dad on Fresh Prince.
Uncle Phil.
Not Uncle
Phil. No. Sorry. Yeah. His dad was a truck
driver. The truck driver. When he popped back up when Will was like 17 on the show or something like that. He was like 17, 18, somewhere around there. Yeah. And out of nowhere, he popped back up after I think he left him when he was like 5 or something crazy like that, 5 or 7 or something.
Everybody's seen this episode,
dude. And it's probably one of the most traumatic episodes that you can see as a dude who has issues with your father or anything like that. Is like, dude, if you don't want to get busted up, probably don't watch that episode. I'm just gonna give you because the scene that gets me every single time hits me right in the feels. And no matter, even though I know it's coming, is the end of that because it's basically a short story. So his dad comes back and finds him, figures out where he is, meets him at like a carnival or some stupid crap like that, or somehow meets him, just pops back up out of the blue like, I was in town, hey son, how's it going?
He was excited. He's like, my dad's back.
No, he was not excited at first. He was pissed at first, but he worked his way back in to his good graces, where like, man, it's like, look, I was young and basically came with the it was this situation, this is what happened, and Give me 1 sec.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, because it has been forever since I've seen this episode. Oh no, you're back. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, what ended up happening was, sorry about that. Dog's going crazy. So his dad works his way back in his good graces, and then he's all excited. He's like, yeah, he talks about, he's like, man, I'm going on a road trip. Why don't you come with me for the summer? We can get to know each other. I get to know the man you are now. The thing, every guy who didn't really grow up like having that dad figure or dad at all would love to hear, be like, hey, I want to get to know who you are. I want to spend time with you. All these different things like that. Finally, after decades. And so he's excited about it and everything like that. And then come to find out, his dad tries to sneak off. And
without a word too.
Yeah, Will's Uncle Phil like stops him, like, hey man, you can't do that to him. He's not 5 years old anymore. You can't just run away from your problems, whatever. Give me 1 second here. I gotta handle it.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So, tries to basically get him to be a part of Will's life. And it's like, look, even if you have to leave, at least just say something to the boy. You can't just run off on him again. And he's like, no, I gotta go. And I can't even remember what his excuse was. Maybe he just wasn't feeling it. A similar thing happened in Talladega Nights. If anybody has seen like the Ricky Bobby story, where his dad abandoned him, and tried to come back at some point, but there was something that was still kind of broken in him before he could like really be a good dad. Go ahead and finish your story.
Sorry, had to abandon my kids real quick.
It's not funny.
It's right. It's raining. I had to put my dog in the basement. She freaks out about thunder.
I got you.
So yeah, but so he's about to sneak off, and Uncle Phil's like, "You can't just abandon this dude again."
Yeah.
He's like, "No, abandon him." He's like, "Well, I'll come back and like I'll call him from the road." He's like, "You're not gonna do shit."
Right.
It's like you're scared and you're a coward, just like you've always been. And so
Yeah.
they get into it a little bit, and Will shows up.
I got
And
the
he's like,
tail
"Hey,
end,
Pops,
yeah.
I'm ready to go and everything," while I was trying to sneak out. And he's like, "Hey, man, I was gonna call you. Something came up. We're gonna put our trip on hold for like a week or two, or 9, or never.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see you on your, on your son's 17th birthday,
Right.
whatever it may be." And he was like, so they end up like having beef again. So, Will's like, "Okay, yeah, no problem." And he's like, "Yeah, man, I'll call you. I'll call you." He's like, "Yeah, okay, good, good to see you. Bye."
Yeah.
And acts like he's okay with Uncle Phil. He's like, "Hey, man, no, I don't need him. He's been gone since I was 7. It's not like I'm gonna cry now that he's not here." And he's just like, he's wrestling with it. You can see that he's wrestling with it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I made it through my whole life without him. I learned how to shoot basketball. I went through my first date. I went through all these situations without him. I'm gonna, graduate, college. I'm gonna get married, have a kid. And I don't need him because there's nothing he can teach me about how to love my kids.
Right.
And then you just see him turn to Uncle Phil, and he's like, "Why doesn't he want me, man?"
Yeah.
And just everybody breaks. It's like, he broke. Uncle Phil fucking broke. I start fucking crying.
Right.
yeah. Why doesn't he want me, man? It's like, yeah, dude, all your daddy issues will come up. You watch some stuff like that, bro. For real.
Yeah.
But yeah, just so to have, you were mentioning a guy who stayed, who had his issues, who knew he had his issues, who was trying his best, even like he wasn't doing, like an Al Bundy, like not doing his best, but trying. He stayed. He could have left, but he stayed. And he might be a terrible dude. He might be, just surviving, or existing, and not really adding much to life, except like make sure you don't die.
Yeah.
And sometimes getting close with that. But this guy chose, the guys who choose to walk away.
Yeah.
That's the ones where it's like, if you choose to stay in your bed, at least you're there. It's like, it's like, because I've heard guys say, and you can do a lot of damage having a guy there, having a father figure there, or a dad who decided to stay and doesn't know how to do the job.
Yeah.
Is like, who takes out his aggression on you, and all these different, we talked about that before. You can do a lot of damage that way. But I don't think you can do as much damage as like a guy who poofs and disappears, because you must have this image of what could have been for the rest. That kid will have an image of what could have been, who this guy could have been, what his life could have been like, all these different things like floating around in his head.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say the worst of the worst is the guy who does that and then tries to pop back in for a second to make himself feel good for whatever reason, and decides to pop back out again, like you're playing with them. Those are,
hey, look, I came back.
Those are the worst examples I can imagine of, like, that dad that, like, there was a was this, I don't know if it was one of those parody movies where it's like, I came by to pick up my son. He walks in and he picks him up. He's like, nice. He puts him down. He's like, I'll be back to pick him up next week, and walks out the door.
the mom in that situation was like, he's such a good dad.
Yeah, he's such a good dad.
Oh my god.
But the dads that like pop up, like when you're, when the kid leaves when the kid's 5, pops it back up when he's like 9, leaves, it's like only for like a month or two. It's like, hey, let me go buy you some shoes and some Burger King. And pops back again when he's 14. Like, hey, here's some condoms. Take care of yourself. Here's some Jordans. And then pause. And then once they come to like graduation, be like, hey, you invite me to graduation, right? I don't even fucking know you, bro.
Right.
This is like, those I think are probably the most dangerous in my mind. They do the most damage, because it's one of those things where it's like, if you have it to where it's like you're here constantly, but you're really bad at this, you can almost kind of deal with it. Like even if it's like, this dude punches me, hitting me upside my head, or, you know, threatening to whoop my ass all the time or anything. Like, but the dude is there when I would go to sleep and when I wake up.
Yeah.
Is like he's making sure he's actively making sure that I survive somehow. Like,
Yeah.
it feels like he's trying to kill me sometimes, but he's actively making sure I survive.
Right.
Then you have the just ghost, this like outline of what a dad, you know, where your dad was.
Yeah.
You know, it's like what this could be, this vision that you're trying to put a face on. And then you have, but to have the worst be the ones that are like the hocus pocus dads, like the poof in, poof out.
Yeah.
You know, lights on, lights off. Like you know, that has got to be the worst, man.
Yeah.
Is like, because like every, you know, to have that hope that like you see this dude and it's like, oh, maybe he figured out that I'm valuable. Maybe he figured out that I'm worth something. Maybe, you know, maybe I can learn from him now and see, you know, how to be a man, the thing I've been missing. And then realizing that all gets just ripped away from you over and over again. That's got to be fucking terrible, bro. That's like opening up a wound over and over, like never letting it quite heal and just ripping the stitches out before it's healed.
Yeah, for sure. It's not the best. There's a couple more examples that I wanted to look at, but honestly, I think we've covered it. There's so many different types of dads. There are those who will go to the ends of the earth, literally, like Liam Neeson, to go get his kid. They're okay.
Yep.
You know, well, like honorable mention, basically. But you know, there's the only thing that we really want from our dads is to be there. Like in what was it, Fight Club? Brad Pitt, I think that's the one who said it. He said that like our fathers are our first examples of God, because they are our providers, they're our protectors, and they are supposed to nurture us and be there for us and make sure that we are, you know, taken care of, and we know what's right from wrong and all that kind of stuff, and have morals and whatnot. And if they don't have it, or rather, if they leave and they abandon you, what does that say about God? And it's like it's a trickle down effect, man. Psychologically, you'll feel it. You know what I mean? If your dad is absentee, or even if he's in your life 100%, but he's not the best, you're still going to compare that to some greater example of what life is. You know what I mean? You're still going to look at that like, okay, I for sure, as a man, I for sure need a male role model.
Yeah.
The closest thing you have is your father. You know, maybe you have an uncle, maybe you have a granddad, but you're always going to be looking for the person you came from.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing with God. It's like, you know, what a lot of people have that question of, you know, what's the greater purpose for me being here? You know, I look at my kid kind of the same way, where it's like, you know, he looks at today. You saw it when we were having our meeting. He was clinging on to me like he thought I was going for cigarettes. Like he would not let me out of his sight for nothing today. And it was like that all day. But it's like, you know, if you take that away, even if he doesn't have that memory of when you were there and when you subconsciously, it's like, how come there's not another dude here? Where's my dad?
There's always going to be something missing.
There's always going to be something missing. And I don't know if women have the same thing with their moms, but I know for sure women have it with their dads. Because I have a friend right now who, you know, she let our friend group know that she had a hole that was missing, or a piece of her that was missing. It was because she didn't have an active dad in her life. Yeah. So she wanted to go seek him out. And it's like, and it's always, I ain't gonna lie to you, it's fucking crazy how you could have like that parent that's missing, but they're in the same fucking city. Like you're not like in another country.
As some family members who've experienced that, it can just be. I think that could kind of be like that would really mess with you. I think that would
like
really,
you're like 10 minutes away.
Like I know you're here somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, close by, probably.
Right. But you know, and it's unfortunate, but like you're always going to be looking for that, and that might stem. That has a lot to do with how people end up maneuvering in the world subconsciously. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, every guy's just looking for his hero, man. It's like, honestly, then, and you said, you know, you mentioned that every guy sees his father as a god. You know, it's like same thing with a hero. It's like that hero worship. Yeah. It's like, you know, it's like you know, JJ looks at you like a hero, bro. It's like you're his hero. You know, it's like, and that's what a lot of these figures, and whether they be, and for a lot of it, we say these heroes, but a lot of it ends up being like we're looking for a lot of us, and I think I said it in a episode we had before. Most of us as guys are just trying to become the heroes we wish we had in our lives.
Yeah.
Even for those of us who had, even for those who had dads who were there, and maybe weren't in the best situations. A lot of us are just striving to become, in our life, the hero that we wish we had in our lives growing up, whether that be dad or Uncle Phil or or
granddad or whoever.
God forbid Yujiro Hama as a
Right.
a heroic figure in our lives, of something that we can look up
Aspire to.
and aspire to. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro. But I think it's been a great conversation. I know Edmund has to wrap it up because he has some teaching to go do.
I do. Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's been a great conversation. I hope you guys definitely got something out of it. Drop some comments down in the section, man. It's like, what worst dad ever, best dad ever?
Yeah. Who's your favorite dad?
Who you got?
Mine is Frank Murphy.
Choose your fighter.
Right. Shouldn't this be a video game with like only movie and TV show dads?
only dads.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Because you like Uncle Phil fighting Yujiro Hama
and winning. That would be wild. But yeah, man, it's so important to have these conversations because these are the things that people don't deal with subconsciously.
Yeah.
For those who I got a friend who tells me all the time he loves to throw in my face that my dad was active and his wasn't. And it's like it's a joke, but my dad was there for him.
Yeah.
But it's still that subconscious, like, where is my dad? You know what I mean? Like, I can have all these role models and stuff, but I don't have the mold in which I came from, so I don't know how I'm supposed to be built. And even if it's not the best version, at least it's the version that I came from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, let us know, what is your experience with, have you ever looked up to movie dads or TV show dads or anime dads? Or like, what is it? What are your influences if you didn't have a dad that was around? You know what I mean? And like,
my hero dad
what
was
lessons did you? That makes so much sense.
My hero dad was fun.
Well, oh yeah, I forgot to I found you a therapist. I'm going to send you the
time
number.
for therapy. All right, yeah.
Yeah, man. But tell them where they can find us and all of our all of our goodies.
Yeah, man, you can definitely find us here on YouTube. We have our video podcast here. We stream every other Friday, so it won't be next Friday. We'll be dropping a recorded episode for the podcast. But every other Friday, you can check us out here on YouTube. Also, YouTube Music. We're working on getting we had a bit of an issue with our Apple and our Spotify account, so we're setting that back up. We should have that back up and running here pretty soon, so you can check us out all those places where podcasts are found. Yeah. Definitely also check us out on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. Definitely Facebook. The Facebook thing is bumping, so we're definitely spending more time there. So we got that going on. Also on X as well. So definitely check us out there, man. And also, if you want to have more information, definitely check us out in the Legion community, where we get into conversations like this, but much on a deeper level, talking about your masculinity, your money, your purpose, and your battle mindset. So we dig into all those things. So definitely check us out, man. Tap in with us. And we'll be seeing you guys very soon. I gotta go.
Okay. Yeah, man. Don't forget, it's better to be a warrior in the garden than a garden in the war. Check you guys next time. Peace. Boom. Sorry, trying to end it here.